And this is the first podcast for Follow Your Path of 2023 with a guest. So I am starting my year off with the great and powerful Mr. Christopher August, who hasn't been on the podcast in a couple of years. Our lives are literally night and day different from the last time we were on. And we've just made a lot of quantum leaps. And I think our last episode is one of my more downloaded one. So it's awesome to have you back on, man, at this current awareness and consciousness that you are.
Well, I'm happy to be back. And yeah, as we stated, we were in totally different places back when the last episode happened. And, both of us going through different life experiences, as really life is just a continuous journey and unfoldment. But happy to be back at this point of consciousness, this point of awareness, to be having this conversation today, which I feel is going to be a very important conversation, not only for us, but also for perhaps the people listening to this as it relates to a very important segment of our lives.
I mean, man, you were in like Buffalo. I was in Boston at my parents' house, and now I'm in Montana. It was before my Montana journey, before your Mexico journey, and just wow, leaps and bounds in the last year and a half or so. And yeah, that's what I love about the conversations we have. And just for context, if anyone doesn't know Christopher, he does a lot of different things, but he's a really powerful breathwork practitioner. He's a coach, he's a speaker, he's a guide and facilitator of all things transformation. I use all of his beats and breath stuff at retreats that I do. And yeah, he's just he's a really close brother, and a guy who, this is coming up a lot. I'll just say this really fast. A lot of people are feeling a little bit lonely, feeling like they're losing their friends. They're losing the people that they once used to hang out with. And I always tell them, I'm like, when you start becoming more of who you are, your soul family, the people that are just the very similar energy to you, they just come in and they come out of nowhere. And you'll find them in the weirdest ways. And that was you. When we first met, it was like, I'm like, yep, this guy's a brother, like another version of me. And here we are years later doing our second podcast episode. So I just put that possibility out to people that we're in a time right now where the soul family's coming in, the connections are coming in that you need to have, people that see you and know you and understand you. And it's a beautiful time in that way.
Yeah, and I appreciate you actually mentioning that, because I feel like that is a great segue into, talking about relationships in general. And I think, one of the biggest things, and I'm super grateful to call you my brother as well. And I've, gotten through some really difficult times, thanks to your support and love. And, like, we all just have each other's back, which is great. And, I think part of the process that a lot of people go through, as you were speaking to, is this part of becoming more of who you are, more of your truth, more of your authenticity, all of that. And as a result of that, the people that are not in energetic alignment for that truth, for them to actually receive it at this point of their journey, then they will just generally begin to fade away, right? And that could be a really difficult process. I know both of us had gone through some grieving as a result of losing some friends, and friends, brothers that we grew up with for a lot of our lives, and them kind of fading out, and other people beginning to fade in. But it's definitely a grieving process, and something that's really important to feel all the way through. I mean, up until recently, man, like, I had fucking dreams about a lot of my old friends, like, that, and me having dreams about them was like being with them or having conversations with them. So there was clearly a part of my psyche, that, and that part of the unconscious, that really had not fully healed from that. And so really paying attention to those dreams and allowing myself to process as I needed to process, but also being grateful at the same point for the people I do have in my life at this moment that are here on my journey right now. And the realm of relating, whether it's romantic or with friendships or family, it's a whole realm in itself.
It really is. I mean, when you think about it, those core friends that you grew up with, especially if you lived in the same town for most of your life, you go through so much shit with them, like so many first life experiences. And it's like when you're really starting to build your identity and your emotions are the most intense. And so, yeah, the energy of those people just gets really ingrained into your psyche. I have dreams about my childhood and in high school and college friends all the time. I'm like, okay, it's just processing things with them. And um yeah, it's like at this point, some of them come for the ride, some of them don't. Maybe there's a reunion to be had later on. Life's just doing its thing right now. And yeah, I think you're right in saying, Christopher, that yeah, the relational stuff isn't talked about as much because there's so many things you can say about that, but I think it's more focused on intimate relationships rather than just all relations in general. But you know, they're all so important because that's our whole life. Our relationships are everything. That's our experience on this planet, in this physical plane. Like, yes, we're here to know ourselves and evolve and learn about ourselves, but ultimately it all comes down to the relations that we have and the way that those feel, and if you know how they support us and how they help us to grow. And you know, we're in a pivotal time where it's really being asked of us to look at our relations and ask the question, you know, is it serving us? Is it depleting our energy? Is it in alignment with the version of us that we are now? Are we holding on to old parts of ourselves to try to hold on to that friendship or that partnership, whatever it might be?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big one, and relationship in general is the cornerstone of our lives, right? And it's how we actually get to know the deeper parts of ourselves is through the eyes, through the heart of another. Whether that be a friendship, a family member that challenges the shit out of you, or a partnership, or whatever it might be. It's through the eyes of another that we learn the deepest parts of ourselves, and oftentimes the most uncomfortable parts of ourselves, because they're shining a light on the shadow that is yet to be seen. And that's why I believe that relationships are perhaps not perhaps are the greatest teachers that we have. And if we can allow them to fully run its course through our lives and surrender to the moment with these people that we're interacting with, we open up new vistas within ourselves, within our hearts, and all of that, to really see the depth of love. And that's what it comes down to. And something that I've had to go through many trials and tribulations, as you know, to understand that the processes, the challenges, the struggles that I was going through in my own relationship, particularly within my intimate partnership, all of that was just helping me to see the love that I really was, to not place my external power onto somebody else and reclaim my happiness and joy that is already within, but I was placing it outside of myself. And perhaps we could talk a little bit about that later. But, you know, all in all, relationships are so incredibly important.
Hmm. I mean, our world would completely transform if we can start to adopt the ideology of, you know, the people in your life. It's like you're me living a different journey. You're a mirror of, you're another expression of all that is looking at me right now. And there's always an opportunity to see yourself in a way that you couldn't if it was just you. And you know, if you want to get really meta and really deep, you know, it's said that that's what God was originally. That's what the universe was, just a singular entity. And it wanted to, I would imagine that gets, not that God would feel lonely, but it gets like not very exciting. And so it splits off into infinite billions, trillions of other pieces of itself to then actually know itself to its full capacity. And that's kind of like us, you know, like we're through all of our relations in our life, we're getting to know ourselves more. We're seeing where our triggers are, you know, like when someone pisses us off, especially the closer relationships we have, it's like, oh shit, that's the part that I'm not owning or see with, know that that is within me too. Um, and there's no other way to get that other than relationships. And that's probably why I ran from intimate partnership, long-term committed devotional intimate partnership for 10 years or more. because I think I was unconsciously fucking terrified to be seen in that way and to see myself in that way through another. And that's why I admire you a lot, man, because you were in a relationship for a long time, and you have a child together, and yet like you guys have are on such a similar path, but like you just yeah, there's some people in my life like you guys, and then Michael and Mackenzie and some others, just the way that you guys approach your relationships and the fires that you burn through, and the agreement that you have to each other to be the mirror and to be to hold space for all of that, no matter how painful it is, no matter how crazy it gets. So yeah, man, I would love to hear what's alive for you around that. I mean, there's so many places you could take that. Is there anywhere that's on your heart right now that you would want to just start diving into around that stuff? Because I know it's a really big one for you.
Oh yeah, it's a huge one. It's
Yeah.
massive. And I feel like before I share what my heart feels called to share is just mirroring and sort of correlated to what you said in the sense that the judgments, and I think this is a really good preface to the story you might dive into, but the judgments, the attachments, the stories, all of the things that we have about others is just repressed and suppressed parts of ourselves that we're denying, right? That's the shadow.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity, once again, is okay, I'm seeing this. This is triggering me, but how can I use this as an opportunity for healing?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so this is the framework of the journey that I've been on over the last 8 years, specifically the last 4, which has been the most intense. And trust me, it has not been easy by any means, but I will say that it's been extremely rewarding to know more of myself as a result of actually committing to this work, which is really where the commitment is at. It's, yes, a commitment to another in that space, but the commitment together that is made, then the devotional commitment that is made is to understand the deeper layers of oneself. And that is the exact sort of mantra that Sarah and I, my partner of 8 years, that we spoke back in 2014 when we met in Tanzania, Africa. And I'm not going to go through the whole story, but there are people that haven't listened to the story in its full detail because we haven't really shared it publicly yet. And if you follow me on Instagram, maybe you've heard parts of it. But regardless, Sarah and I met in Tanzania, Africa in 2014. And when we were there, we were both Peace Corps volunteers. And she has a whole backstory to how she even got there, which is extremely synchronistic and incredible that she's actually alive after almost losing her life in another African country. But to really dial in the story, so we met and we knew right away, I knew right away, she knew right away that it was going to be a very intense journey in the sense that we could no longer run from our pain, from our fears, from ourselves, which, I had just come from the corporate world. I had left that whole world in leadership development behind and really um, started to embark on a new journey to find what was true and authentic for myself. And of course, living primitively in nature and living in the middle of a village, 17-hour bus ride away from the main city of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, you can imagine how confronting that experience alone is, and what I share is the amount of realizations and also emotional breakdowns I had of not having running water, all the modern amenities, electricity, internet, all of that, and that being stripped away, and me just being with myself in nature with a bunch of other people that have been living this way for thousands of years and also did not speak a lick of English, but only Swahili. So all of this experience in itself was comforting or confronting, but also very revealing. And then Sarah came in, and again, another instance where, okay, I'm going through this experience here in Tanzania, and then this other person having her own experience. And I remember the first couple days after we met, having a conversation. She lived a 3-day bus ride away from me. But we built our relationship on the phone. We met briefly and then built our relationship on the phone. And it was this commitment that we both felt to ourselves in the sense that we wanted to grow, that there was something bigger out there for us. And so that was sort of the foundation of our relationship, was to commit to that within ourselves and also within each other. And we didn't really realize the power of that intention at the time and what that would catalyze later on in our relationship, which I'll speak to now because I think it's important to talk about in context to this conversation. So, fast forward 4 years, we've traveled the world, Africa, been through South America, have really, honestly, what people would say is the most ideal relationship possible. We didn't leave our each other's side. We were very, very, like, we never fought, we never yelled at each other. We went through these peak experiences through all different modalities of breath work and psychedelics and all of these things. And you know, we had such a powerful foundation, yet there was a lot of shadows in that came to the forefront in 2018. And that's really when things started to unravel, because no longer could we be in this type of partnership we were operating in. Doesn't mean the love that we had for each other was lost, but we were, what we realized later, was very codependent,
Mm.
very entangled, not healthy in the sense that we didn't really do anything outside of ourselves. We were together like 24 fucking 7,
Mm.
aside from a few things, which I was like, okay, I'm going to have to look at some shit here. And what made me look at some shit was when Sarah told me back in 2018 that she felt these feelings for somebody else and that she felt this love for this other person, this guy that she had met online in one of these groups that we were in, spiritual healing groups, whatever.
Mm.
And when she told me that, it almost was like a shock. Was like, okay, yeah, like cool.
Yeah.
Like I took it like really chill. Like I remember taking it really chill. Okay, yeah, she's, she talked about it openly. Like, I feel these deep feelings for this person, this love. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, I can understand that. And then
Just
a few days
protecting yourself.
later, exactly. A few days later, it hit me, and I was like, "What?" All of a sudden, I got flooded with just a tidal wave of unworthiness, a
Yeah.
tidal wave of feeling hurt, of feeling rejected, abandoned. All of these childhood wounds that,
Mm.
ooh, they were deep and really came on strong as a result of her sharing her truth. Now, because of the shadow of possessiveness and control that was very much alive within me at that time, I was fighting that tooth and nail. Like, this is not right. This is not how relationships are supposed to be, because I was basing off the model of what we are
Yeah.
taught essentially through church and religion and modern
Yep.
society, of just monogamy and being with one person. And I was
Yep.
like, okay,
So
well,
deep.
yeah, that's another conversation. Perhaps we'll dive into that once we open the space. So basically, that in itself, during that time, I was very much stuck within the dogmas and the limiting beliefs of my own mind. And this went on for that whole year. And conversation after conversation, me doing my sort of thing of avoiding, which is sort of my attachment style, her being anxious attachment and wanting to talk all the time and create conversations around it. And it
Mm.
was just a really bad mix. And, I went through a deep, deep depression. There was a lot of trauma as a result of that,
Can you
which,
touch on that real quick? Sorry to cut you off. Just like
yeah.
because I think there's some people that are listening that don't know what that is, like the attachment style. So the anxious and the
Yes.
avoidant.
So there are attachment styles, and there's 4 of them. I'm not going to go through all 4, but I'll go through the
Yeah.
most prevalent, which is avoidant and avoidant and anxious,
Yeah.
which you can also have both together. So avoidant being withdraw as soon as things get heavy, conflict happens, and you withdraw, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of out of the picture because you can't handle the intensity of it.
Yeah.
And this is a result of us feeling hurt or rejected as children. For me, my parents got divorced at age 10. That was a very intense experience. My dad remarrying a year later, and just all of that, it created this sort of avoidant tendencies with me. And then also watching my caregivers, my dad, being emotionally detached, right? So, I created this from that observation as also my direct experience.
Mm,
Anxious being those that they're scared of losing somebody. So they're
yeah.
going to try to do whatever they can do to try to fix the situation. They're the people pleasers. There's the ones that are going to want to try to do whatever they can to grasp to ensure this person doesn't leave. And, then you can have a combination of the both. So that's just a
Mm.
brief highlight of attachment styles.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's yeah, something that's not as common as maybe you would imagine in terms of like people knowing that stuff with relationships. That I didn't know about that until last year, and I feel like that's an important thing to grasp, to know that about yourself so you can see the pattern like when it's happening in a partnership like that. I think that's super important. So thanks for explaining that.
I agree, man. I really agree with that because, and you want to all this psychology talk, you really want to understand it, but not like base your life on it, right? So there's like
Yeah.
good understandings and things to know as you know this. But ultimately what we're trying to do is try as we heal the core wounds within ourselves, we become more secure and safe within ourselves and therefore become more secure and safe in our relationships. And so in a nutshell, that's the journey that I'm sort of highlighting at the moment. So going from this place of avoidance, of running away, to then having to face it full on, my emotions, my feelings around it, which being an Aquarius moon doesn't always help as well. That could be very difficult because of the sort of detachment naturally from emotions, but
Mm,
really having to get into my feelings around this. And as a result, childhood wounds coming up and all of that. So long story short, that year was basically a deep dive into that, while also, which is a whole nother side story of getting pregnant, of consciously conceiving our son who communicated to us through spirit during this upheaval, right? So I'm like,
oh, it was
what the
during that.
fuck?
I didn't realize that.
Oh,
Okay.
oh yeah,
Wow.
in the fucking midst of
All
it. Like,
right.
okay, we both got, August came through in meditation. We both got the date of conception and like, so we're working through this huge thing with this and then having to, really connect on this level to consciously conceive our son in the way that we did. And so that alone, that year was very pivotal. She ended up kind of cutting that connection off as a result of my own sort of emotional reactivity, which we've processed later.
Yeah.
Um, and actually had since met him this past year, which was a whole interesting
Wow.
scenario. Um,
Look at you.
so
Diving deep. Hey, real quick before you go to the next part, I think people need to hear this because conversations I have, people that I work with, this is so it seems to be foreign to a lot of people, right? Maybe they can understand conceptually what this is, but maybe if you could just talk real quick about like for anyone listening, you can imagine what it would be like to have your partner just kind of come out of nowhere almost and say, "Hey, I have really strong feelings for this person I met online, and actually, maybe I'm in love with them." What that might bring up for you, right? So, but Christopher is not like a lot of people, and you had some of the tools already to process this. But like, what was a way that you allowed yourself to like sit in the emotion of that and like heal that? Like, what was the process you kind of went through to get yourself to the other side in a more conscious way that actually doesn't run away from it or stuff it back down or avoid it in every way possible, like just for anyone who might be dealing with something like that in their life in whatever way that could be manifesting.
that's a beautiful question and something actually I will touch on it because literally it's been until this past year, 2022, where it's come full circle. So,
Yeah.
it's been a 4-year process. Now I'm still processing certain things.
Yeah.
However, I feel very much, 90% complete on that and more at peace with myself. And of course, there's always more layers. But yeah, in the midst of that happening, I don't want to glaze over that. I was feeling the abandonment, the unworthiness, all of these things that were coming up within me. As a result of feeling that, there was a lot of tears shed. I cried all the time, really felt like my heart was broken. I felt, and anybody listening to this can and knows that experience when you have a breakup with somebody or something happens, you feel this deep heartache, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
was feeling. It was just, and it was stress and tension. I was like, okay, should we even be in this? Should we get divorced? All these things coming up, and I always knew deep down that she always loved me. Like that was always there in the way that she was in integrity and honest with her feelings, which I very much, commend of her for doing that. And, she could have easily gone behind my back, which is what happens with a lot of people. If the communication or the safety is not right,
Totally.
most of the time it ends up in cheating and then
Yep.
someone finding out later and then divorce. Right.
Yep.
So in this case, it was the opposite, where it's like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And Sarah's incredible like that. She's an amazing communicator.
Mm,
So thankfully she did that, because it allowed me to go deeper into some of this stuff,
mm,
which basically I've had multiple sides of this experience show itself over the years, as you know. And
yeah.
I'll fast forward till 2019 was a whirlwind. We had our son, he was born. That in itself was a whole experience, being parents now, not only business partners in a relationship, but also being parents. And so, there was a lot of emotion there, and things that were activated within me as a result of having my son. And then 2020 came around, and that's when more of the deep work around relating started to happen, in the sense that I was faced with a scenario in Mexico, in Tulum, in 2020, late 2020, about a little over a year after my son was born. And I was in a sort of business collaboration. And during that time, I came to Mexico to do some work here, do some breath work and some other things. And I uh, met this woman that was a part of this partnership. And there was an instant attraction, like an instant remembrance of sorts, soul connection.
Mm,
Felt like I had known her for years, and I felt a very powerful physical, sexual, emotional, mental attraction to this person. And, you know, we had some very vulnerable conversations, talked about my journey a little bit, what I was dealing with and going through. I felt that she was a safe space to share that. And, over a course of a few days, we developed a really unique bond. Nothing physically happened there at that time. Um, but there was a lot of fire. There was a
mm,
lot of lightning. There was a lot of whoa, like my Venus and Scorpio, which is very passionate and also very sexual, which I've had to come to terms with as well. And understanding that part of myself
mm-hmm.
was very much alive during that time with this person. And so basically that month went by. I came home. I was very hesitant, avoidant of having this conversation with Sarah, to know at this point that I had empathy for exactly what she was going through. And I didn't plan it. This shit was cosmic. It just got fucking dropped in my lap.
Oh
And so
yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
like
okay,
now you're gonna play reverse roles. You're gonna feel everything the other person felt.
yep, here you go. Here's your spoonful of medicine.
Yeah.
And so there I was in the same position. And this person and I, which I'm not going to name publicly on the podcast, but we communicated for that month. And I did kind of like, Sarah's just like straight up like, hey, this is what's going on. For me, I'm like, I tiptoe around it, or I was at the time.
Mm,
And I was scared to tell her, even
yeah.
though she was the most open-hearted person I know. Got into, I kind of revealed some things I was feeling to her. And then the next month, I actually went back to Tulum, because I was doing more projects there. And of course, this person was still there. She was living there at the time. And it was a very powerful, deep, intimate connection that her and I shared together. I will spare the details, but it was very, very powerful in many ways over the course of a whole week. And, that
Come on,
experience
man. Give us
even.
the 50 Shades of Grey story.
Should I tell the erotic tale on the podcast?
Yeah. Follow your
Maybe
follow your
this shit
eroticism. Like that's my new podcast name.
this shit will get the most downloads you'll ever have if I share this. Uh, yeah, her and I shared a very deeply intimate bond, and she ended up actually coming back to Buffalo 2 weeks later, where I was living at that time. Oh, and Mr. Sean Graves was in the house,
I was
so
there.
you can attest
I was
to
like, I know who
this.
this is.
So she came back and, Sarah and I had very open conversations,
Wow.
very, very vulnerable conversations about the fears that were coming up. You can imagine all three of us in this space, me and this person having a very deep, intimate bond, which something that Sarah and I was very much lacking in regards to our own polarity in our relationship. And
Yeah.
so we had this intimate bond. Of course, I felt this deep love for Sarah. And now we're having these open hearted conversations. Well, boy, was that fucking terrifying, and that
In your
really
house too. Like,
in my
wow.
house. In my house. It was dead of
Holy
winter,
shit.
having these conversations, but approaching it with a lot of awareness and
Mm.
to the best of our ability, right? And it was very illuminating for all involved, good medicine. So that connection went on. We saw each other again this past year in Hawaii. And that was also very illuminating in many ways. And there was a lot of very beautiful teachings that has come from that connection. And I have so much love in my heart for her as a person. She's incredible, and nothing but deep respect and reverence. Now, that was the first and of my sort of empathy experience. And I'll pause there because I know that was a lot. So is there
Mm.
anything that you feel called that should be shared more, or things that need to be clarified?
Well, I just really loved the idea, or just picturing the three of you having that conversation. Like, that just takes a really high level of emotional intelligence and respect. And I just think the collective of humanity would look at that and be like, you did what? You had that woman come to your house and you had that conversation with your wife? Like, that's fucking crazy, man. And it just really speaks to the possibility that gets created when you do your inner work and you expand your awareness and your consciousness, and you start to recognize more truth, and that we're meant to communicate in that way. We're meant to have those vulnerable, deep, real conversations. We're not meant to continue on that pattern that we inherited from our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, where we just run away from that shit, and we do whatever we can to hide from it, or just shut things down and say fuck the other person, like get the divorce. So many people do that, and because you guys have done your inner work, you're able to get to that place and able to extract so much juice from it, so much evolution and growth, because you were able to stand together and be like, no, let's have a mature conversation as grown adults and really look at these things. Like, what a beautiful thing that was. I was just really feeling that as you shared that.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for your reflection on that, brother. And like the thing is like I don't want to paint the picture that this was like super easy. Even though I had a level of awareness and I was able
Yeah,
to communicate to some degree, it was still really terrifying and really difficult. And there were times like I want a fucking divorce. I don't want to be with
I
this
bet.
person anymore because of how much that she challenged me, right? To go into these
Hmm.
spaces. Sarah doesn't fucking back down from that, man. She goes right in and she'll call out shit. And
Hmm.
that was very confronting for my masculinity as well, right? So I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
fuck that. I don't need this.
Yep.
But, you know, of course, in hindsight, looking at it, it's like, wow, thank God I went through this, because, it really was truly such a catalyst into the following experiences, in which I've had over this past year, specifically, even this past 6 months. And, one of the things that Sarah shared early on, and I think this is a really important point to make, something that I did not want to accept or listen to at the time, but something that I now see is very valuable, and something that I can say that I'm so glad that she said this. And one of those things was, not everybody can bring you the medicine you need at any given time. Not one person can fulfill all of your needs at one time. That's virtually impossible. And that each connection that we have is simply just a mirror and helping us to know the deeper parts of ourselves and also activating different parts of ourselves. Whereas maybe, the activation from the realm of intimacy might not be present with you and this person at this time, me and my partner and Sarah, but it had to be activated by somebody else. And it was also much more than that. It wasn't just the intimacy part, but
Mm,
that was it was a reconciliation with my own sexuality
mm,
and something that I had really shunned for a lot of years, the guilt and shame I felt around the life force energy flowing through me, that really feeling these things for these different women and feeling these attractions and all these things that, of course, as men were oftentimes shamed for. So there was a
mm,
huge reclamation of that through this other person that I was not able to get from Sarah directly at that time. And
mm.
so, these are the lessons that I've learned in hindsight. Of course, during the time, it's like, what the fuck is going on? It's chaotic,
Yeah.
but you extract the medicine as you sort of look back on it. So that was the main medicine of that connection specifically.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing too. If you repress that, like you could have easily have just kept that in or kept that a secret and just it like that would have eaten you alive from the inside out. And that would have, because I feel like, yeah, it's just such an act of courage to not repress that because our conditioning is so wired to do so, especially as men. Um, and to go into hiding and to do things behind the partner's back and to let that kind of lustful energy, just leaking sexual energy, just kind of be all over the place, but actually pretend like it's you got a hold of it and you're okay, you're good with it. But I think many of us are full of shit when we try to tell ourselves that. And yeah, I just love that you leaned in and you didn't go that route, because that's a big step in evolution for men. I feel like that's a big one.
100%. It's
Yeah.
a huge one. And, I feel like there's a long way to go on that because the distortion around sexuality and which has been purposefully created to keep us in a space of really heavy fucking dense energy, and when
Yeah.
it's not being used and channeled properly, as you mentioned, right? Because it's just directly connected to our creativity and our life force, as
Right.
many people know listening to this. But when you can really heal the deeper layers of that and you come into a reckoning with your own sexuality, oh my god, you can have mind altering, heart expanding experiences in which you meet more of yourself through that space.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I began to realize and wake up to, because before that, sex was always just a way to alleviate the internal pressure of my own angst and my
Yeah.
own sort of desire. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I love it. And the gene keys, actually, this is mentioned in the 36 gene key. I knew gene keys would have to come into us at some point.
It's gotta.
In the 36 shadow, which is the shadow of turbulence, interesting one, as I've
It's in my
contemplated it many
chart.
times.
It's in my activation sequence.
What key or what sphere?
I think that one's evolution. Yeah, evolution.
Greatest challenge.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
So this is in my EQ and my emotional intelligence, which is governs the years of 7 to 14.
Yeah.
And without going too much in depth of it, the shadow of turbulence is this feeling of angst and anger and sort of like this internal, like, yeah, what turbulence or pressure feels like as a result of not fully expressing and being authentic to yourself, and specifically your sexuality. As Richard states in it, lust is not a negative thing. It's the moral compass we've placed on it.
Yeah.
And it's the guilt and the shame that we've placed on our primal animalistic desires,
Yeah.
which are not bad, inherently bad,
Yeah.
yet they also need space and they need to be held with reverence and to be channeled properly. And this is mastery. This is fucking like Buddha mastery. This is not something that just happens overnight. So this is a lifelong thing.
That's
But
that's a fucking wild lion we're talking about right there. That one's not gonna
yes,
lay down at your feet
no,
overnight.
nor should it. And allow the lion to be expressed, but in what way is it being expressed, right? So,
Right.
oh, there's so much there. That's a whole
That
conversation.
is a whole conversation.
Perhaps we open that up for exploration at another point. But
Yeah.
what one yeah, I guess to continue with the rest of the story, which I'll just kind of briefly highlight, which is leads me to the next experience that I had, where in last year 2022, Sarah had met somebody back in the spring. um and there was a few other connections in between then that were, there. But, just to kind of get to the meat of this conversation, she had met somebody, and, this person, initially was like a friend, and it sort of turned into more of a romantic interest. And she again communicated everything. And she, up until this conversation right now, is still seeing this person. They are sort of, I guess, what you might call in a partnership of sorts.
Mm.
And this person is a great guy. I really like him. He's a really like gentle, nice person.
Thank God.
And
Imagine if he was an asshole. That would have made it so much harder. That would
oh
have
my
been a
god.
whole other piece of evolution. But it doesn't
Well,
I mean, it's not surprising that he's a cool guy.
and I was very resistant to it in the beginning. Even after all of these years of going through what we went through, I was still was like, fuck that. Like,
Yeah.
this guy is like, it's like competition, right? Because you're like,
Mm.
who the fuck is this person? Like, who's, because it's the sense of entitlement and ownership and possessiveness that we carry around our relationships, which is a
Yeah.
very important point. And what I very much was playing out was my attachment to Sarah and her experience, and her living her truth and expressing her truth was a
Mm.
threat to my security and safety, because I was placing my power in her court.
Mm-hmm.
And through
Wow.
that experience, I was like, I didn't realize this at first, but my reactivity, my defensiveness, my like, fuck you attitude towards her and the experience she was having was a result of me feeling this anger, right? And this angst within me because of this primal competitive ego sort of shit that was playing out. And
Which is not love.
no,
No,
it's
it's
far
just
from it.
not love. Yeah, it's the opposite of love. Did you feel like, I'm just curious, when that as that's going on and like really taking form, did you get a sense of like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna go find someone too, like, I like to try to fill that void, like try to get her back or to even things out, that type of thing?
It wasn't so much vengeful, but it was this sort of unconscious desire that kept creeping up within my awareness to really want to fill the void that I was not receiving within our partnership,
Hmm.
and create a scenario in which I had somebody and that I could fill this sort of emptiness that I was feeling within myself. And so that
Mm-hmm.
kind of was where that was coming from. And I quickly realized that. And I'm a little bit different in the sense that she's very much like, I mean, she's a relationship coach, right? So she's like, connection is everything to Sarah. She's also a Gemini, which is like,
Yeah.
everything's very connective in that way. And for me, I also really much enjoy my solitude and my aloneness, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to have a partner. And I'm very dedicated to my mission and my sacred work, and that really takes the forefront aside from being a father and all of that. So
Yeah.
we're on different scenarios in that way. But anyways, yeah. So really, I was feeling so much, and deep down in my heart, what I really wanted, because really what I was resisting was growing, as anything does. And the more resistance I had, the more tension I felt in my body, the more stressed I felt, the more just fucking anxious all the time. It was so uncomfortable. You can imagine this going on like this for 4 years, pretty much consistently,
It's a
and
lot.
feeling this threat from the outside world. Like, my body's still like trying to recover from that.
Yeah.
And you know, I deep down, I really wanted to accept her for who she was. I wanted to be able to show up as that person, not her husband, not these labels we put on, but just as a person to support her in her own unfoldment. But I couldn't come to that. It was so difficult for me because of the attachment that I had, which was, I'm your husband and this is not acceptable.
Mm.
Okay. And this is where it gets interesting. I realized through these sort of narratives that were playing out in my mind that I was placing all of my power on her, So all of what I was feeling, thinking, believing about myself was a result of her life experience. Now, there are certain things in which this might bring up a conversation around boundaries, which is a very important conversation because I think there's a misunderstanding around boundaries. Boundaries are important. Most of us don't learn boundaries early on. We're actually, most of our boundaries that we may have, that we realize we have, are pretty much trampled over as children. Mine specifically, and I'm
Oh
sure you
yeah.
could relate to, is in the sense that I was a very sensitive kid and very much really needed space to recoup. I took on everybody's energy being intuitive, open, and sensitive. And I really needed time to really sit within my own self. And oftentimes, I didn't know how to voice that, but, just I didn't have that space. And that felt overwhelming for me growing up as that child, as I reflect on that. And with this scenario and this in relationships specifically, oftentimes boundaries are put in place to control, and there's an unconscious thing that happens here. It's not it's not so much a boundary, it's more of a rule.
Mm,
Okay, that is either consciously or unconsciously agreed upon in the relationship based on the societal blueprint that we have for relationships. And so, of course, because of what I felt was a boundary was being crossed, where it was like, no, we agreed upon monogamy in this. And sure, we married on those terms, right? And unspoken terms, I should say.
mm,
But people evolve. Her
yep.
truth was always sort of this way of more openness. She never expressed that, which we've healed and talked about, where, perhaps that should have been more expressed early on in the relationship.
Hmm.
But it all worked out perfectly because now we're here at this point. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to segue that into, yeah, that conversation, because I think that's really important. Now we could break that down even more, but again, another conversation for in itself. So really, go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead. I
Okay,
was
I didn't
just
know if you had something. I wanted to leave space. um so basically, with that being said, I at this point now where I wanting to have this acceptance of her, but realizing I'm attached to it and my power is given away. So I remember it was the end of May or early June of this past year, and this is when everything shifted for me. I said to Sarah, I said, "You know what? I've been doing really both of us and having this sort of misfortune in a way because I've been putting all of my eggs into your basket and not taking ownership for my own self and my own emotions and also for my own life and what I desire, what I want. And I've just been giving it to you, and all of my power has been sucked away as a result of that. And in this moment right now, I spoke this out loud. I am reclaiming all of my power, my sovereignty, and my truth, and I'm putting that back into my court. And
hmm.
that is when things shifted. That's when this true healing began to happen,
Yep.
which was a huge fucking wave. Now, it took some time for that energy to integrate through another experience in which I had met somebody literally 2 weeks after I made that declaration. I
Of
met somebody
course.
else. And of course, here we go again for a very powerful realization and deeper conversations about this. But the beautiful thing about this other partnership that I had with this woman, I won't go into all the details, but basically, the medicine there for me, amongst many things, was this opportunity to really heal this once and for all. And the moment that it came was we were sitting around the dinner table. Our son, uh, Sarah and I's son, August, went to bed, and he was sleeping, and it was me, this person, Sarah, and her partner, and we were sitting downstairs. She was sitting next to him. I was sitting next to her, and we were sitting at the table. I think we had a joint at the time. We were smoking a little bit of a J, hanging out. And I realized in that moment, I was like, wow, like the observer came out, and I observed the situation from a 30,000-foot view. And I had to laugh at the cosmic joke of just this situation playing out the way it is. And I had so much love in my heart for Sarah. I had love in my heart for this other person she was seeing, and of course, the person that I was with at the time. And I felt so at peace and so much calm and acceptance wash over me in that moment that, yes, our situation may be deeply unconventional, but our entire relationship has been unconventional. There has not been one conventional thing about it. It has not adhered to the status quo. It's challenged the fuck out of the status quo, and it's met the deepest of our edges. And I also held the fear that what other people would think about this. What would other people think, including my own family, right? Which I
Mm,
just recently kind of opened up with my mom and that conversation around that. And Sarah's family always kind of, they had the ins sort of they've also had unconventional things in many ways regards with her brother and all of this. But there was so much there that felt healed in that moment sitting around that table. And I'm so grateful for these experiences because they've just really taught me so much. Now, I do want to say that the experiences that I'm having are not truth in itself for you or anybody else. It's a fragment of sort of consciousness in which I'm getting to experience. I
yeah.
don't subscribe to labels of polyamory, monogamy, all of that shit because labels just box us in.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing life with an open heart and allowing the connections and the people and the experiences to come my way as they need to, and not interfering with that process. And I get to say yes or no to that. And
Yeah.
as a result of living in an open hearted way, I'm experiencing more of myself through the lens of another. And will this carry out as a story through my whole life as a being in sort of this open container, open relationship? Perhaps. Perhaps it won't. I don't know. But all I know is that it's very, very deep medicine if we allow it to, and we allow ourselves to get out of the way. So that's what I will say about that. And I'll leave it open for deeper conversation if it needs to be had.
Oh, that just feels so much to me like what life is inviting us into and part of our evolution as humans, right? It's like, I mean, this hasn't been going on for that long, right? Like this was our primal primitive nature when we were living in tribes, when we were starting things off. Only since really, and what's that book? I think it's I forget his name right now, but it's called Sex at Dawn. It was like the advent of agriculture turned relationships into this like more monogamous kind of possessive. I have my land, I have my family, I have this woman. And that was not the model really before that.
No.
And but through our eyes, we have this lens of like, because that's all we've known in our lifetime, that's the way that it's always been, and that's the way that it needs to be.
Yep.
And I think as part of us cracking open out of that conditioning, out of the matrix programming, and you start to become a channel of your authentic energy, it can look very, very different, not only from society, but just from other people around you. And it's like you're the creator, you're the universe is experiencing itself through you, and it's like your situation's gonna look, if you're following your authentic path, which is that's what this podcast is all about. Follow your path, however fucking wild it is, however it wants to look in your intimate relationships. You want to have 10 girlfriends and you want to have a big gang bang with everybody, like that's awesome. But it's like we're learning, if you trust yourself and you just follow your heart and you flow with that energy, it will guide you. And exactly what you said, which I loved, was you get things will come up and then you're a yes or a no to it. And
That's it.
you that's what you follow. It can be that easy if the mind's not in the way, trying to make a meaning of it all and trying to be like, well, this is crazy, and like, what are people going to think about this? And like, no, that's, what are you doing? And that's the ego. And it's like the more that we can just be embodied and grounded into our true nature, um it's very zigzaggy, and it's way more fun and interesting that way. And it might fuck you up real good at times, like everything that you were sharing, like, but that's what you came here for. It's growth. It's burning through those fires. It's feeling really deeply. That's what it means to be alive. And I think we're in a culture where we've learned to just fucking numb out. and not feel and do anything we can rather than feel. And that's why we have so many drug issues and pharmaceutical medications that people are hooked on, because we're trying to escape that feeling. But that's, and Gene Keys talks a ton about it. It's the feeling that's like what makes us human, and it's why we're here. It's why we brought ourselves into this physical plane, so that we could have those types of experiences. And we've just had this veil pulled over our eyes where it's like, no, don't feel that, like take this, or um be a victim. Like that was another big point that I got from your story, was you so easily could have just let yourself, like you caught yourself when you were in victimhood. Like you caught yourself giving all of your power away to the other person. Most people don't catch themselves, and they keep doing it unconsciously, and then they get the divorce, or they say fuck you, and then they hate that person, and then guess what, your child, your son, just like you had to do, I'm sure, like when your parents divorced, he would have taken that on, and he would have had to go through the shit that you're going through now, that you're
Yep.
alchemizing so that he doesn't take that on. And it's like, what a gift to him, and what a possibility that creates for the people around you. And the story, like you sharing the story, just creates a lot of, yeah, and invites people into possibility to something so much deeper. And I really think that's where we're meant to go with all of this. And we're we're
Mm.
we're stopping those patterns from our ancestors and coming back to ourselves. And I think your story just highlights all of that so much.
Yeah, there's so much there that you said was fucking just like on point, as everything you communicate, I really, really appreciate. And I think one of those ideas that was brought up and sort of mantras of this podcast is follow your path. And most people that don't follow their path, it's because they're afraid of what other people will fucking think.
Yeah.
And that's why we stop ourselves, is because there's multiple fears involved and you can get deeply layered in this, but it's generally what other people will think. Now, of course, it could be scary when you're going against the sort of grain of society where people are like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is not right," or they'll put their judgment on it. But you know what? You got to let all that shit go at some point, whether it's about a relationship or the dream you want to follow or whatever it is. Like, fuck that.
Yep.
Just follow your heart, and your heart never leads you astray. It might look fucking crazy and messy at times from the outside and inside, but it's always right. So, that's number one. Number two, the judgments I had to work through was like, oh, I have a son, right? So this is
Mm,
extreme. You have to be extremely mindful around children being incredibly impressionable from the ages of 0 to 7.
yeah.
And, all of these, sort of relational dynamics that we've experiencing, they're all very healthy, and everything is talked about in a very open and communicative way. August has a beautiful relationship with Sarah's partner,
Mm.
like a great, like he asked to go play with him and stuff like that. And of course, at the beginning I was like, no, fuck that, I'm the dad, like I don't want
Wow.
him playing. But dude, as you said before, we primitively, for all of these years up until modern age, have lived in a society in which there's multiple people raising our children. We live in a village setting. There's multiple perspectives to be learned from.
Yeah.
We are constantly learning from each other through these perspectives, and even the children, like it's really so important. And you don't have to be in this sort of relational dynamic to have this. You can have grandparents, friends, family, whatever. Just so happens we have all of those things. And all of these people contribute to the growth and the nurturance of our son. We're not going to let anybody in this fucking house that it has malintent or bad intentions. It's all with good intent. And so there's a beautiful thing there. And funny enough, the last person that I was seeing, I was with, she shared the same exact birthday as my son. So it's like, oh, the universe just drops that in your fucking lap. And it's like, beautiful. That's amazing. Like, so there's just like, this is a beautiful sign. Okay. And I can say yes or no to this, but all in all, like, again, this is not to push an ideal, an idea, a way of living or relating onto anybody. It just simply stating that what we can do in our lives, whether it comes to a relationship or anything else, is to invite in more surrender, more acceptance, more trust into our lives, and allow that to infiltrate every part of ourselves, our cells, everything. And the more we can do that, the more we get to enjoy life. Like how much of our time is spent fucking worrying about the future and the regret of the past and everything we've done, when we can simply just allow life to show us the way and let go and let God, and that's really what it comes down to, at the end of the day. And that's where we can have our most fulfilling experiences, is through that way of living.
Mm. And think about this. There's a lot of people out there where if some of those things happen to them, or if their partner shared something like that, they might carry resentment and anger in their heart and in their body for the rest of their life, which is going to affect think of how, like, just at a kind of meta level, the effect that that has on your story, the way that you handle these things. And you have the choice to harbor that, to go into victimhood, to deny the opportunity of evolution that's right in front of you, or you can lean in and receive that and open yourself up and feel it and let yourself just be taken where life wants to take you. And that's what's going to lead to the highest fulfillment and sense of living, and what's going to crack you open from all the shit that's not you. And it's like
Precisely.
you can either receive that, or you can do the lifelong resentment and leave that partner and jump to another one and go through the same shit. And you know, we're we're at a point in the story of humanity where it's so important to follow our path that life gave us. And we all know what that looks like to some degree. It might not be super clear, but if we can follow our heart, which is not a linear path, we're so trained from school to be in our left brain, to use our rational reasoning mind to do everything. And it's point A to point B, fucking just straight linear with everything. The heart is a crazy ass zigzag, spinny, whirly thing and it doesn't make any sense to the head, but it gets you where you need to go. And it's like we're starting to be led from that place, from our emotions, rather than the mental plane, where there's just so much distortion and deception and confusion and programming and societal matrix hijacking. Like, our only safe place is the heart, so we don't get fucking worked in the mental plane from this outer world that uses that to get us. And I think
Yep.
your story, and just you in general, man, like you're such a heart guy. And I think the more people hear stories like this and feel your energy and listen to the things you've learned, that we've learned, it just invites that possibility, and it invites others into a new story of themselves that doesn't have to look the way that they ever thought it would be. When I told my dad 2 years ago that I was doing mushroom ceremonies with people, he's like, "What the fuck?" Like, I was like, "Dude, I know. Same thing. I had no idea I was going to be doing that, but that's where my heart led me." And it's like, here we are 2 years later, all the people that had their lives transformed because of the yes to that. And I could have said no and just gotten another tech job or some other job that wasn't following my heart. So this is a big one, man. And the relational stuff is a huge piece of it. And I'm just really grateful that you came on here and vulnerably shared that. It's still
Yeah.
pretty fresh for you, and still, like you said, you're still processing stuff from that. And to come on here and publicly talk about that it's an act of courage and vulnerability and authenticity. And yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know the listeners will too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you holding the space for this to be seen and felt and shared and all of that. And I knew the day would come where I'd want to open up this. I've been already doing that with my own community through my emails and some
Hmm.
Instagram posts, but I definitely feel like this needed to be flushed out fully. This story, it's
Mm,
almost it's healing for me even sharing it right in this
mm,
way. And there's one thing that I keep getting like sort of like hit with right now as I'm speaking, and something I feel really called to share, and something is also based on the teachings of the gene keys before we wrap this up.
mm.
And the Venus sequence, which is one of the 3 gene key sequences for people that don't know about the gene keys, really first one being discovering your purpose, the second one, the Venus, being opening your heart and relationships and healing your core wounds, and the third sequence being the Pearl sequence, which is all about liberating your prosperity and new paradigm of business and leadership.
Hmm.
And in the second sequence, in the Venus sequence, Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, talks about this idea of the power of relationships and the greatest opportunities that they lend us. And most of the time, especially in this culture that we live in, which is very much based on how can I meet my needs and desires right now from this other person? How can this other person make me happy? Let me go on this date, go on this dating app and meet this person. I'm not hating on dating apps or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that oftentimes we're seeking one to the next and really addicted to the honeymoon phase, right? We all
Mm.
know the phase in the
Yeah.
first 2, 3, 6 months of a relationship. We're filled with dopamine and serotonin. We're feeling good. And this is the fucking ultimate person, the best person ever. That type of
I'm
feeling like,
so in
oh,
love.
I'm so in love, and that's biologically needs to happen for us to have the attraction.
Yeah.
But as soon as the shadows begin to be revealed within the container of the relationship, that is when most people are like, fuck that, I'm
Mm.
out, on to the next, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've done this before, done this many
Same.
times up until Sarah, which I've been in a partnership for now 8 years, which obviously is going to show the underbelly of the unconscious world that lives within. And that's something that both her and I have obviously seen the depths of each other through that experience. And Richard says, if you could really stick through that, the lessons to be learned through that and through the shadows is so important because every shadow contains a gift. And I can attest to that so deeply. Now, of course, the caveat here is that if you're in an emotionally abusive, physically abusive relationship, then you might want to think about leaving and not just sticking it out, right? And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother conversation. But you know anything that you're experiencing within your relationship is a reflection of yourself. Sorry to say it, but it's fucking true.
Yeah.
Anything happening in your life is just a reflection of yourself. Sorry to say it, but it's true. So if you're experiencing any sort of disconnection, any sort of angst, any sort of toxicity, unhealthiness playing out in any part of your life, it's a result of something that's unresolved within yourself. And the more that you do the inner work, the more your external reality begins to shift and change. And that's the message I really want to drive home here, because you are not a victim of your circumstances. Life is happening through you and not to you. So take ownership for what's going on, and obviously remove yourself from situations that might be dangerous, but then look at yourself and understand where some of those parts within you still exist based on your own wounding and trauma from childhood.
Mm. Wow. Powerful message to cap things off with. I
I
mean,
had to say
there's
it.
yeah, I'm so glad you did it because it's so fucking true. And that's true shadow work. And that's the part of you that really needs to be seen, and it needs to be held by you through the eyes that you have now that you didn't have when you were a child or a teenager, when that shit got in there. So yeah, that's a big point. And you know, you have a choice. You have a choice. You follow the heart, you lean in, you feel, you do what's uncomfortable at times, and you trust yourself. You're going to get on the other side. When I'm sure when you were at your lowest point with those types of things happening, uh it was like, yeah, sometimes maybe you don't feel like you're going to get out of it, but then it's like reassuring yourself, and you know what it is. Like having the context of like, I know this is here to help me. I know this is here to help me grow is so empowering and so full of truth. Whereas I think a lot of people get stuck in the illusion of victimhood and how could this happen to me? How could she do this? How could life do this to me? This is fucked up.
I was
And
there. I was saying those exact things.
yep. Oh yeah. You start looking up at the sky and cursing the creator and holding up your middle finger. I've done that a whole bunch of times. And then you have to laugh because then like life just looks down at you, or like not down but just looks back at you, and it's like it just slowly holds up a little mirror. It's all you. It's always been all you. You're it.
Yep.
And you're just like, god damn it, I know that's true, but I don't want to admit it. And yeah, that's if we can really internalize that and just start to just laugh at that almost and just take it a little bit less seriously and just laugh at how fucked up it all is at times. And just hold space for all of each other because we're going through a crazy phase of evolution and it's all in you. It's you. It's you. You know? Love yourself. Have a good relationship with yourself because it's you. If you're beating yourself up and doing that shit, you're fucking yourself.
Yep.
Really.
Yep. Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. And, like, let's just, yeah, I think let's relax and let's have a little bit more fun. I always need those reminders when not taking things too seriously and really just bringing some lightheartedness to it all. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's why I like our relationship that you and I have in the sense of being able to have this sort of beautiful dynamic of humor and also being able to talk about some of this deep stuff. And yeah, I guess for anybody listening to this right now, to leave you with this in the sense that, like, okay, let's say some things are happening right now within your relationship, within your life.
Mm,
You're really asking yourself, what is the message here for me right now? What qualities of my true self that are desiring to emerge as a result of this experience or situation? And really getting into the depth of what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, not attaching to your feelings, accepting them as they come, the emotions that come, whether they be positive or negative, and just observing, just feeling into the body and allowing yourself to be guided by the heart and knowing that you will always come to your own perfect wisdom and answers as things unfold, but allowing them to unfold, to see things out fully, to see where it takes you. Because I couldn't have imagined that 4 years ago I'd be having this conversation with you from this point of consciousness in which I would
mm,
be like, hey, this was the greatest medicine I've ever could have received, in the sense that I now have such a deep level of worth and love for myself, which is really the ultimate gift of this all, is what
mm,
I alluded to in the beginning of relationships, is the opportunity is to love more of yourself. And when we could do that, that is a natural magnetic force that's cast out into the world that then helps other people to do the same, is really what the journey comes down to. At the end of the day, if you had to boil it all down to one grand, large purpose, aside from being alive and evolving, it is literally to just come back to the source of love that is within you, not the love and the labels we put on love, but the true, unconditional, infinite, divine, cosmic love that is already deeply within us. And I'm still uncovering layers of that. I have not fully realized that yet. And when I do, I probably won't be in this human form. So,
I was gonna say, yeah, you'll be the next Buddha. If that's the case, the next Yeshua.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what we've heard so often, you know. It's like I was talking to someone today, oh, love yourself. Like, what the fuck does that mean? And I don't know. It's like don't let yourself carry shame and guilt anymore and forgive yourself and accept who you are and try your best and just be you. That's like the most. And then like when the thoughts come in that hurt, you know, when the thoughts that are like you suck or you're the worthiness stuff, it's like you got to almost be vigilant and be like,
Mm,
no, I'm not letting that in because I love myself. I'm not letting that come in to hurt me because I did that for most of my life and I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to protect myself and not entertain and attach to those thoughts. And that's been my experience of self-love really recently, when those low vibrational thoughts try to come in and hijack my brain. It's like I'm like, no, I'm not
yeah.
doing that anymore. I am not letting myself get hurt by that. And I can feel the love in my body and in my cells when that's going on. And it is like it's a vigilance that we have to cultivate because there's a lot of low vibe thoughts flying around and things trying to bring us down.
Oh,
It
yeah.
takes that, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's intense at times, and being open and sensitive as you are, as I am, and it's like feeling the collectiveness of holy shit, what people are going through. And I
Yeah.
also want to retract. I because the power of language, I'm going to openly retract my last statement of saying that perhaps it might not happen until after this lifetime, but I am open to this happening in this lifetime where I am the full realization of love. So I just want to say that because I'm not casting spells on myself in that way,
Good catch,
rather
man. You
more.
really put yourself in a box there for a second.
I did, fuck.
If you want to
So,
realize yourself in this lifetime, I'm a full yes to that and full support
yeah,
of that.
beautiful. um, so anyways, yeah, like again, as you were saying, I think the mind, it could really take a hold of us, and really it's just our opportunity to just be extra observant and vigilant for when those things come up and catch yourself. And that's really what awareness is just over time gaining the awareness to catch yourself and not being hard on yourself if you do go down a fucking shame rabbit hole, or a depressed time, like it fucking happens to all of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
such is life.
Indeed it is. Oh man, great conversation, as I knew it would be. I knew it was the right time to have you
Yeah.
back on here in 2023 to start the year off with some vulnerability and some good old heart to heart, real shit.
Mm,
And
I
I want
love
to
it.
put that energy out there this year. Like that's my number one intention, is to just beam out the authentic energy that I am, that you are, that we all are, because that's what I want to see in the world. And so I have to be that as much as I can if I want to see that. And that relates to a lot of what we talked about. So
Mm,
appreciate everybody who's going to listen to this. Big love to all of you. I hope you received, I know you had to have received something from this at some level. So I hope that you integrate that, make it real, not just a fun little floaty thing that feels good for a few minutes afterwards. Bring it into your life. Take some of this and make it something that makes your experience better, more authentic, more heart centered. And as always, peace within is peace
yes.
without.
Mm, be- send it. And
Send it.
one thing I want to share actually before you cut this,
Mm,
and perhaps you could clip this in,
yeah.
is that I just want to share an opportunity for people to really take this work deeper. If they're wondering, hey, like right now, I am struggling with these things that may have been mentioned in this podcast, in this episode. I might be having these experiences where I'm feeling anxiety and tension in my relationships. I might be, feeling this sort of overwhelm, this heaviness in my life, and these things are coming up within my mind, these control mechanisms and all of the jealousy and anger and all the stuff that we more so spoke to during this conversation. If that's happening within you, what I would invite you to do, and something that Sarah and I, we are launching the second round of our group coaching experience called the Liberation Experience. And this is an 8-week program and something that we feel extremely passionate about. And really, it's focused on relationships, and most importantly, the relationship to yourself, so that you can align with more fulfilling, harmonious, peaceful partnerships. Now, we take you in this program, we take you through our 7-step method for healing, transmuting, and liberating your core wounds that still exist within you from perhaps childhood or other parts of your life in which you've experienced some trauma. And we actually take you through it and coach you through it live with the group. You get workbooks, videos, all that, but you also get the process. So we give you our process that you can use then on yourself. So anytime things come up, you can learn how to do this work. It's really empowering you with the tools for you to be able to transmute these things yourself and to step into a more authentic and empowered version of yourself. So if anybody's interested in that, you can head on over to my website at christopheraugust.co, and you can go under programs, and you'll see the Liberation Experience there. And we are going to be hosting this about 3 times a year. Our next time that we are is going to be in the next few weeks, February 5th or 12th. One of those two dates, we're going to be launching the next round of this experience. And if you can't catch us on this round, there will be other rounds, but we look forward to potentially seeing you there. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at Christopher_August, or ChristopherAugust.co is my website. And appreciate it. Thank you for this time today, brother.